call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. McCausland, will you please take roll?
Mrs. Feiss. Here. Mr. Grisbeck. Here. Mrs. Janasek.
Here.
Mrs. Hoppy.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is we're going to see a presentation on the update of the bus garage renovation project. I think Hayes Group, you're going to do that?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we want to talk about the government approvals update, and we've got good news to report. We did hear back from Allegheny County. We can go to the next one. Okay. We did get confirmation from Allegheny County Conservation District that they've finished their review, and that included the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So that's very good news and allows us to have those permits move forward from there. We are going to get some comments from the Bethel Park municipality, and we're hoping and that they're not going to be major. But again, that's more local, and we feel like they're now on it, and we're going to get that feedback next week. So we should be in good shape. In terms of authorization, we are recommending the board award the bid of the bus garage paving, stormwater grading, and site power renovation work on the project. So there's 3 awards. One would be to Spartan Construction. They're doing the site work. The second is A1 Electric for the electrical renovations, and then A Folino Construction for the plumbing. And what we're explaining here is all 3 of these were bid competitively and publicly. We had recommended and you had awarded a portion of A Folino's contract previously, which is listed up there at $186,696, in order to expedite the ordering and expediting that order for the actual stormwater retention tank, a very large tank that's going to be a large part of their work on the project. So you're awarding the total contract and then the balance of what you have not awarded. So that just kind of is an explanation with that. In terms of construction schedule, again, with your award, we'll move towards completing agreements and mobilizing. And Folino has indicated to us they are ready, willing, and able, and they would like to move forward. So the idea would be we would start as soon as possible with the work of the project. And right now, all 3 contractors are confident that they'll be able to get that done in the fall. So, any questions?
One question, but I think it's to Dr. Jansani. The buses are going to need to be moved out of the garage to get this done. We had talked about putting them at the high school.
Yes.
Is that still the plan? And what happens if we've started school and having to house them there with all the athletics that go on in the fall?
Yeah, so this Thursday, we have already scheduled a meeting with the high school principal, Mr. Villani. We have the local police. We have Hayes Design. And we're going to meet and also Scott from the bus garage to meet to do that transitional piece. We're putting things in place. Now, your question about what if we run into the school year, part of the discussion is going to be that we're going to recommend that we don't issue all the student parking passes until we're ready to take the buses off the property.
Okay, I'm not as concerned about the student parking because most of them park over at the gymnasium, so that's not as concerned. My more concern is the nightly activities that all go on at that high school. You have Pee Wee football, you have, recreational lacrosse, you have football games on Friday nights, and those buses are going to be there. How much has that impacted the parking? How much is that impacted for a security issue also with that?
Well, we've done a few things. We've been waiting patiently for additional cameras to come in place. The reason why I talked about student parking, typically student parking takes place over by the stadium. We're going to recommend that the faculty and staff park over there. We're going to recommend those after-school activities park over in the large lot. We're going to recommend that the temporary bus location, which is the current faculty parking lot, be not used for after-school activities or during the day. So it's going to be exclusively for busing for right now. Hopefully, we're only going to be 1 or 2 weeks into the school year, and we'll be able to move things back to the new site, our new bus garage paved lot.
Dr. J, how many home games do we think would be impacted for the fall for football?
I'll be honest with you, I think 1, but I'm not sure. It could be 2.
Because remember, in the past, too, we did make arrangements with Port Authority and
Where we can do a shuttle run.
shuttle from
Yes.
over there, so.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about all those things on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Now that we know we got approval, that's why we were waiting, and once we knew approval was in place, we set up the meeting.
Question about the scope of the electrical work being done here. Mr. McCausland had previously discussed the possibility of running conduit for in the event if we decide to move to electric buses in the future. I'm assuming that's included with this amount. And then for, I guess, what that would look like from a planning perspective, whether it be, control panels or anything like that, electrical panels, is there any consideration there on how we'd be able to, I guess, expand at that point? Would that be of a concern, or would that be pretty easy to do?
If I can just interject one thing about the electric buses. So there was a grant out there for electric buses for schools across the country. It's a pretty large, substantial grant with the idea to promote electric transportation. Unfortunately, when we look at all the requirements, Bethel Park's not really in line to be one of those first considerations, as well as your fleet has to be older than 2010.
Right.
So we don't really qualify from the socioeconomic piece, as well as our fleet is relatively in good shape and new. So we did investigate. We've been looking at it since March, but we're really not seeing that we'll benefit much from that
Right,
that
makes
grant
sense.
that's
And
in place.
There's also the option of selling off your buses that are close to that point, getting that money on the resale value, and then still taking advantage of the grant.
Yes.
But yes, I agree, based on socioeconomic status, the odds of us, it reaching us in the lottery, probably not super high. But I was just curious if that had been looked into at all.
Certainly. So hopefully, if I miss a question, just please re-ask. Sorry, there was a little bit of a pause. But so we are running extra conduits. So right now, you have warming stations at each bus location.
Right.
So we're replacing all of that as part of the project. While we're doing that, we're going to run extra conduits that are in place. So if we do need to have power over there in the future for electric buses, that can be done.
Okay.
There's no extra power going to the building as part of this, but more service can be brought if we need to, again, for that in the future. But the most important was making sure we had the conduits in place underneath the lot so it doesn't have to be torn up, so you have that ability in the future should you want it.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the paving project? So let's move on to the IMS project and the update.
That would be us. So before I get into this, Kevin's going to just pass around. I think you guys saw maybe a little preview of this before we talked to the teachers last board meeting. That booklet right there is the result of all of our meetings with the teachers, everything documented that we ended up using really to define the scope of the project through our meetings, through follow-ups. I'll get into that a little bit more, and I'm going to show you a couple examples here, but just going to let you guys kind of take a quick look through that and have that pass around. So the first thing I wanted to do is just give everyone a quick refresh, make sure, we haven't got together for a month or so, just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the floor plan. So the white area on the top right of this plan, that's the phase 1 area on the first floor that's being renovated right now. Where you see the red arrow in the middle of the page there, that's the main entrance. And then the main office is directly above that with all the classrooms to the right. That's the phase 1 6th grade classrooms. On the top left of the page, that's the Unified Arts Suite. That's your art classrooms.
tech ed classrooms, your wood shop, nutrition lab, sewing lab, those areas are being reconfigured to be more efficient and to get rid of some dead-end corridors and just to improve the overall flow of that space. The nurses' suite in purple, right to the right of the blue area, will also be reconfigured to be more efficient. As we come down the page, the auditorium will have some new seating provided, and finishes inside that in the auditorium will be updated. To the right of that is the cafeteria. I'll show you a rendering here in a little bit of what we're thinking in the cafeteria. But for the big change in the cafeteria is moving the restrooms that are in between the cafeteria and the auditorium, moving those so that space between the cafeteria and auditorium opens up and just feels more open and more inviting. On the bottom left of the plan, you'll see that blue area with the music suite. We cleaned that up a little bit, again, to help with circulation and to provide a bigger choral room to better serve, the functions of chorus. And then in the bottom right is the renovated area of where the kitchen will be, is the kitchen area which will be renovated to replace outdated equipment and to give it kind of an overall modern food court feel.
So I think I'd heard in our last meeting that some of the costs were coming back, and maybe this is where we need to synchronize what you guys are going to present, but some of the costs for Phase 2 were coming back a little bit higher than expected, and we were going to come up with some options to reduce that cost. Does this design reflect that, or is this still kind of the ultimate design concept?
Yeah, so what we've been doing over the last month is coming up with options to reduce that cost, paring things back. From a floor plan standpoint, we're really not looking at changing the layout in here. That's not really going to be options. What we looked at is some things on the exterior to scale back, looking at it, can we reuse some of the some MEP systems that really aren't at the end of their life, that maybe we can come up with some ways to replace some fittings instead of replacing the whole system. So we've come up with some options to address the cost that doesn't affect any of the layout that I'm been showing here. Kind of the focus has been, let's keep the educational pieces in the project and look at what else can we do to give options to the district to bring down costs.
Right, and I'll just add to that we'll talk more about that with SiteLogic taking the lead.
Okay.
But to answer your question quickly, no, it has not changed substantially the layouts that you'll see tonight. And,
Okay.
and these plans reflect what the current design development scope of the project is.
The only reason I brought it up is at one point I thought we had discussed, at least conceptually, that maybe that restroom change in the, around the auditorium. It's kind of a nice to have, but not absolutely necessary, and moving all that stuff could add quite a bit of cost. So that's where I don't know if there's any layout things we should be considering. Also, the cafeteria, are there some things we should do to maybe scale back, still make it a good cafeteria, but maybe not the extent of the changes. So, but maybe those are in some of the options that you're putting together. Okay.
All right, second floor. For the most part up here, the second floor is configured the same way it is today, with the exception of the classroom area just above the auditorium. What we did there is got rid of a hallway that runs east and west just north of the auditorium, and widened that little hallway that runs north and south in that green pod right above the auditorium. Again, the purpose of that was really to try to funnel some more traffic to some of the stairs you have so everyone isn't trying to go to where that ramp is today. Give more, basically just help with circulation so that we're spreading the kids out and they're all not using the new stair all the time. So that's a layout change we did upstairs. And then where the current, down at the bottom part, the green classrooms in the bottom there, that's where the current special education spaces are today. That'll be reconfigured slightly, just basically turning some chopped up rooms into full-size classrooms. And that that'll end up being where the world language classrooms will live, on the second floor. So mostly, for the most part, the second floor is replacing finishes, replacing MEP systems, not doing a whole lot of reconfiguration at all. All right, so then down to the ground floor, the locker rooms are on the left side of this plan. That's the big change downstairs. We're going to take the oversized existing locker rooms and create 2 locker rooms that will adequately support what the school needs today, while also providing 2 health classrooms downstairs. The health classrooms will have windows to the exterior and give the school just a couple extra rooms down there. In the bottom left of the plan, you'll see a fitness room that will be used for adaptive PE and just can be used also just for extra gym class in that space. In the gymnasium itself, what we have in the project is and I'll show you a rendering of what that's going to look like here in a few moments, but in the gymnasium, painting the walls, getting rid of the yellow walls in the gymnasium, replacing the bleachers with a color that goes better with and functionality too, with what's going on in the gymnasium. No more blue bleachers. New bleachers that match the space, new basketball backstops and basketball hoops, and just really making the space around that beautiful new floor in there actually look, all tie together. And then just one other small thing on here, like we're doing in the rest of the building, the toilet rooms that are across the hall there, those at the top of that plan there, those will all be renovated to be handicap compliant. Any questions on the overall floor plan? All right, so these next couple pages are essentially what's in that packet that's going around. So like I said, I think you guys saw a little preview of this, but just kind of to fill you in on the process, what we did with these is for this one here, this is an example of what we would have shown the 7th and 8th grade general instruction teachers, the math, English, social studies, and I guess that was it. Maybe the reading department too. We wanted to talk about the layout of the classrooms, where the casework was going to be, what wall the marker board and teaching wall is going to be on, how much, how much marker board versus tack board makes sense. We met with them, built a consensus, then met with Raquel and Zeb afterwards to really nail down what do we want to do to try to create consistency in all the classrooms. So we used this to build the scope of work for the design development that eventually was put in our massive set of drawings that we ended up turning over to SiteLogic to price. So the teachers had plenty of feedback in what you're going to see, what you see in that booklet, and what I'll just show you some examples on the next couple pages.
I also want to add quickly that the furniture can be configured in any of the configurations shown on this plan, and that was the purpose of this particular drawing, is to show the teachers that they'll have a multitude of layouts that they can teach different ways and team teaching, group work, etc. And then the other is that with all of them, again, there was the process of getting their input, developing plans, meeting with them, get their feedback, answer any questions, revise if necessary again, all the time working with the principal and Dr. Jansanti as the assistant superintendent to vet various options and choices and then show all of the teachers, again, the final decisions and explain why. It was very time intensive. We met with we did meet with every teacher in the building, and very time intensive, but it's the way of developing not only informed design decisions, but consensus on the eventual outcome and scope of work that's developed. So it was very successful.
So this is a typical classroom layout. The next page in here, this is a specialty space. This is the sewing and nutrition lab, which, this is a very, like I said, a specialized space that we had to walk through very carefully with them, make sure they understood what we're wanting to do here. One of the big things we talked about in the nutrition lab was I think today they only have 4 kitchen stations. So reconfiguring that space to provide them a 5th kitchen station so that the kids can be spread out a little bit more, and they can serve more kids in those spaces. One of the big things we did in the sewing lab, if you've ever been in the sewing lab today, it's really crunched because they have a whole area of sewing machines and then a whole separate area of tables and chairs. So they try to treat that room with kind of dual function and jam everything in there. So what we talked about here in the sewing lab was providing these sewing machine tables that you can tuck the sewing machine into the table, and so we just have one layout. When they're not using the sewing machines, they slide into the table and they have just a flat surface. So it gives them a little bit more room and really helps the flow of the classroom. Yeah.
And again, you can see in each of the drawings, and each of the board members will be able to see it more in detail in the complete design development packet, but a lot of detail was discussed. Again, you can see there's architectural notes, electrical notes, plumbing notes, HVAC notes, what equipment notes, layout notes, et cetera. So all of that information has been incorporated into these drawings. They have this information then got incorporated into the various architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, IT drawings that were done for the project, and these for just design development packet, and those then will, in turn will be developed even further into the construction documents that will be used to get the bids for the project. So.
Another specialized space was the art room. The art rooms. The biggest discussion when you're talking about art rooms is the casework. What types of casework? What things do they want to store? How do they want to store them? How do they feel about the best way to store things? So that's really what the bulk of that conversation is about, and just carefully walking them through the proposed casework, so we're providing them with the right type of storage that meets the types of supplies and teaching elements that they need to incorporate into the classroom. One thing we did here with the art room too that it's kind of hard to see on the big plan, but was just move the kiln to the exterior. It just helps it vent better to the exterior and provide them with really a kiln room. If you've ever been over to the art room today, it's like behind a curtain tucked in a closet. So this gives them an actual kiln room that both classrooms can use instead of just being off of one classroom. So those were just a couple examples of what's in that packet. Do you guys have any overall questions about the process of meeting with the teachers or the layouts or anything before I show you a couple renderings? Okay. So this is just a reminder. This is a rendering we looked at back in phase 1. We're going to keep that same color scheme going throughout the building. You'll still see the same blues and greens, similar to this rendering from phase 1 on the upstairs in those classrooms on the second floor. This is something you guys haven't seen yet. This is what we're looking at trying to do in the library. So the library already, it has a ceiling height that we have to deal with that we can't really do much with. It's a low ceiling. So one of the things we definitely wanted to do is get rid of the pendant lights in the library that make the room already feel a little bit lower, and then bring some more color in there, make it feel more bright. So you'll see in the classroom area in the back of the library, using these clouds with some color around the outside there to liven up the ceiling. Green bulkhead over the reception desk. That reception desk there is directly in front of the door, way off to the side of the room instead of kind of in the middle where it is today. In front of that reception desk, kind of on the right side of the screen, is just a computer workstation base or a TV workstation where kids can plug laptops in, work together, and show whatever they're working on their laptops on the monitor there on the column in the middle of the room. So really the idea with the library is give it a refresh, brighten it up, and provide more access to technology, make it feel more modern. And something you can't really see in here, but the hallway side of the library will be large windows and lots of glass, so you can see in and see these things. We put the classroom space where that projection screen is in the back on purpose so that you see the technology and the exciting things when you're walking by and you're not just staring at like a tables and chairs like a classroom setup. This is the auditorium. So like I said, I think when I was talking about the plans, replacing the seating is in the auditorium. We'll also be replacing the carpet and putting some new flooring underneath the seating, as well as painting the walls and replacing the acoustical wall panels to refresh the auditorium. One of the things that we are looking into is there are some sound and theater elements being incorporated into the project, and we're looking at ways. Okay, how can we break that maybe in some alternates that can help with costs later? Maybe not giving the Cadillac of a sound system or lighting system, but giving some options there for that type of thing without affecting the layout or the look of the space. So this is a cafeteria. Off to the left, on the left side of the screen, you'll see that's where the new deli area is. That will help pick up the extra demand of extra students that you're going to have in the building. In the middle of the screen there, you can see kind of almost like a rectangle of orange-red bulkheads. That's where your existing skylights are today. We're leaving the skylights just as they are and leaving the bulkheads around that just as it is. We're just going to give it a different paint color and then tie a couple other bulkheads into it to give some order to the ceiling. The rest of that ceiling will remain, it'll be new ceiling tile, but kind of in the same place that it is today. A new floor in the cafeteria, and then you can see off into the distance there in the back right, raising up the sill of the windows so that the windows up are a little bit higher up. I'll show you that here on the exterior. It's kind of hard to tell here on this rendering, but again, just refreshing the cafeteria. Just to the right of that Hawks Food Court sign, where the black bulkhead is, that's where the bathrooms would be, the toilet rooms would be if we didn't move them. So that area is opened up. You can see straight through to the hallway. The new location of the toilet rooms is kind of hard to see. It's just way in the background there. But the idea here, just again, refresh the cafeteria, make it feel more modern, and also while providing the functional need of getting a deli, a separate serving area in there to pick up the 6th grade students. All right, I think this is the last interior rendering wanted to show you. So here again, it's about replacing some finishes and some in the bleachers and backstops. So using a gray neutral tone around the lower portion of the gym, putting a orange and black band around the whole gym, and then painting that back wall above the bleachers orange just to give some, have the floor and the walls complement each other. They're really fighting each other now, and this will transform the space immensely with just replacing finishes. The other thing we're doing in here is replacing the old tired wall panels that are in there with new, more modern feeling wall panels. So the gym is going to, with the new floor and with these walls, it's going to feel like a really bright new space. And then the exterior rendering here, the one thing I wanted to point out on this that we updated through design development is on the left side of the screen there is, you can see the cafeteria wall, and I think Zeb might have showed you guys this already, so I'll just be brief here. This is where we raised the sill height of that glass, which today goes pretty much down to the sidewalk. So we raised it up so that it is at the same height as the brick on the right side where the 6th grade wing is. That ends up being, when you're inside the cafeteria, that's about 5'4" above the cafeteria floor. So from a safety standpoint, I think that's it. That was essentially where that improvement came from. So that's the one change we did here to the front of the building. We looked at other things too, kind of going back to what Barry said earlier about cost savings. We looked at some other things around the back of the building, reducing metal wall panels that aren't going to improve the educational. Again, it was a want more than anything. So we looked at some of that, cutting some of that out of the project, and looking at different ways to do some of the smaller canopies we were proposing at different entrances, again, to look at cost. I think that's the end of that. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, everything that we kind of went through here was put in, I don't know, 200 to 250 drawings that we handed over to SiteLogic to put together a design development estimate that, again, will continue to be evolved and turn into construction documents of probably, more sheets than that, so.
Any other questions from the board on the Phase 2 design? Okay. So in SiteLogic, you have an update on current construction project going on?
So as far as phase 1 goes, that's what we'll start with for today. Let's pull this up real quick. So to start, we've got a phasing plan that you can actually take a look at this time around. This should kind of help visualize what we've previously discussed in past updates. So to begin, I'll start with that, I guess the dark orange portion on the bottom left-hand side of the page. That is phase 1A that we've previously mentioned. That is what we consider the administration area. And that'll be the first area we're turning over, as we've previously discussed. That's what's set for August 17th. Is when we're going to be turning that over. As far as the ongoing activity in there, we're currently complete with framing, MEP roughing, and we're getting ready to get inspections and start drywall covering in there. So again, we've got about 5 weeks until that needs to be ready and open for school. And so you'll see pretty rapidly once we get inspections and get that covered up, finishes will happen very quickly. Again, once we get drywall up and finishing, or the drywall finishing complete, we'll start painting that, getting casework installed. So in general, that covers that area. That's the smallest area we're working on right now, but what's essential to opening the building. Obviously the administrative staff is going to be working out of that area, and so that needs to be open for the start of school. I guess moving over to the lighter orange area, that is. Technically that's going to fall into phase 1B as far as completion and finishes go. But what we need is a temporary certificate of occupancy in that area, because that's going to be the egress path for everyone that's, moving from the, I guess what would be the southern wing of the building, as well as those temporary classrooms and administrative area. So that'll ultimately be accepted and, punched out with the administration on October 21st with the 6th grade wing. But that will be accessible and safe for, egressing for the students and administration. I guess rolling over to the right side of the page, that is the 1B section, or what would be considered phase 1B, and that is the entire new 6th grade wing that we're focusing on right now. So ongoing in there at the moment, we've got, I guess, what would be, the top half of the page is top half of the floor plan is what we consider the north side of the 6th grade wing, and that's what we received back in May. So we're further ahead in that area. We've got drywall hung, and we've started drywall finishing in that section. So, if you were to be in there, I've got some photos that I'll be sharing with you in just a moment, but you can tell in those areas it's more complete, more finished. The structure of that area has come together and is more intact. So in that area, we're moving into finishes now, where we'll, once we're done with the administrative area, we'll slide over that area and start getting paint, casework, flooring, and all those, essential aesthetics that are going to pull that space together. I guess on the bottom of the page, what would be the south side of the 6th grade wing, we're working through that. We just completed demolition and abatement there. So we've just started framing and getting MEP rough in going in that section. So that area looks a little more raw, but it'll quickly catch up to the remainder of the 6th grade wing. And then I guess the last thing I'll touch on, just as far as, the layout of, the area of the building we've been working in is, as you can see, we've got those 3 temporary classrooms. Those will be ready as well for the start of school on August 17th. Those currently reside in the library, and so once, those will be used as temporary classrooms really for the entirety of the phasing throughout this project. And then, once these spaces are filled and there's, swing space for, all the students, we'll get into those spaces and do the library upgrades and finishes in there. Is any questions as far as the phasing goes? The general layout of the areas we've been working thus far on the project? So this is just a summary of the ongoing activities, which I just touched on. I mean, we're doing framing. We're similar to past updates, because of how it's phased, we're doing a little bit of everything at this point in time. We're working on framing, MEP rough-in, drywall install, drywall finishing. We're preparing for MEP trim finishes, and again, the architectural aesthetics that'll pull those spaces together. Something I did not note, it was not on the last diagram. We're also working in the elevator pit. The new elevator we will be installing, that's going to be, it's next to the cafeteria, and so that'll be ready October 21st as well. And so that's an area that, we're just going to have to, there's going to be a lot of traffic there, so we'll have, temporary measures put in place to make sure that area is safe and secure and, separate from the student activities. As far as just a few construction challenges, I know we've talked about this before, but long lead times have been an issue. We've been navigating that throughout the course of the project. I've got a couple industry items that we've been struggling with, across the board on all projects. Doors, hardware, those are 2 major ones. Again, those are items, when we started this project, with the help of Hayes as well, we were able to expedite these, get these items approved, and really get a jump on the lead times associated with these. Transformers and electrical panels are another item that, they're currently just taking a very long time to produce. People are struggling. It's just little individual components of them, that are part of that supply chain process, are taking a very long time to procure. And so that was another item that, we tried to expedite and get ahead of, and then even then ran into issues as we've been working through the project. It's changes day to day. You think everything's lined up, everything's good, and then you get a call or an email from your manufacturer, and they tell you it's been pushed, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And so that's something we've worked through as well by finding, substitutes that, the engineers have approved, or just using we've got, relations throughout the industry where, people, we reach out to them, they help us out, jump us in manufacturing lines. So those are just some of the little ways we've been able to get around some of these supply chain issues and long lead times that we've been encountering. And then something else
Do any of these long lead time items put the phase of the project that has to be open in August in jeopardy at all, or is this more applied to the rest of the 6th grade wing?
It's something so at this point we've worked through any issues we've run into. So at this point, none of these schedule, deadlines are compromised. The 6th grade wing, we're scheduled to open that October 21st, and the administration area will be open August 17th. It's just been an ongoing thing. It's something we're going to have to, keep in mind as we progress with, future phasing. It's, we're going to have to implement similar strategies to stay ahead of this stuff. It doesn't seem like supply chains are getting any better. There's some weeks where it seems like it's getting better, and then it regresses and you're back in the same situation. So I think at this point we've deterred any issues we've run into, and it's just something we'll have to strategize on moving forward. Throughout, again, the 6th grade wing, that's under control at this point, but the phasing of the rest of the building, there's again a lot of components to that we'll have to stay ahead of and work aggressively to make sure we get in time and have in time for to meet the schedule. And at this point in time, I think going through this first phase, it gave us a really good idea of what to anticipate. At this point, we've really been able to isolate the areas of the construction industry and building industry that are being most affected. And so, again, once, design is developed, we're going out to contract, we know what areas to expedite, what areas we need to jump on right away, who we need to reach out to get, production going immediately. And then working with Hayes to just, putting submittals through, it's, can we get this back in a day or two, that's faster than industry standard. Usually you need to take more time to review, but they've been helpful in expediting that and making sure that, we're able to stay ahead of some of the potential issues we could have encountered. But yeah, as far as lead times go, we're in a good place. We've gotten everything released. We've got, confirmed dates. Again, we've had a couple of hiccups that we've worked through, but we're still on track as far as the deadlines to open. And then really the last thing is just unforeseen conditions. That's just something we've been encountering throughout the course of the project. A couple examples are, structural walls. We're, demoing what appears to be, typical framing, a stud wall with drywall, and then we rip it down, and there's, a 12-inch thick, 40-foot long concrete wall behind it. And so we quickly have to pivot and, get a contractor out there who can cut this wall down, get things moving, and get out of our way so we can continue, framing and building out the structure of the project that, is designed. So those are things we have to work through, and they're expensive, but that's, I think, part of the beauty of these GIZA projects is that we do have contingency that we use and we work with and manage to avoid you having the district having to take on any more additional costs, where it does lock in this this final price for the project, and then we find ways to work through a lot of these issues. But a couple of the major ones is just rock excavation. As we were going through the elevator pit, that was another one. It just wasn't picked up on the geotechnical report, and we encountered a lot of rock down there. It, again, slowed things down a bit, required us to bring in, additional demolition controls to get that rock out of there. But overall, those have been the two major, I guess, unforeseens we've seen. There's little ones throughout the project that we run into, but we've been able to work through them effectively to this point. And then I've just got a few photos just so you can see kind of, general status of how things are going. These first two are just the administration area. Again, this is the area we'll be turning over first. It looks like it's probably got, a lot of work to go, but, one of the most difficult parts and most time-consuming parts of the construction process is that, demolition process, getting everything cleared out, and getting the structure of that space, formed up. MEP roughing, framing, that takes time, and then, from that point on, finishes come together pretty quickly. So that's really the next step, over these next 4 weeks. It's really going to be, a process of getting these spaces finished out. These are just a few pictures of the 6th grade wing. Again, this is, as I touched on earlier, this is going to turn over in October. As you can see here, we're getting drywall up, so that structure is starting to form more clearly. Like, if you were to walk through that space, you can tell where classrooms are, corridors, et cetera. So that's, again, starting to come together. And, everything's coming together nicely in that area. This is the south side I mentioned as well. This is the area that had a little bit more demolition that was required, and then it also had asbestos, so we had to go through an abatement process and make sure that was safe and structured. So by design, this is a bit further behind from the north side, but with our schedule, it eventually come together and meet at a head where that area is finishing out together. And then these are not the final product of the temporary classrooms that the students will be in. They'll be much more conducive to a learning environment when it's all said and done. But this is just a glimpse of where the temp classrooms are at this point in time. Any other questions on the Phase 1 update? Let's see, is Mike Arnold on?
Yeah, Shane, can you hear me okay?
Yep, yeah, we got you.
Great. Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is Mike Arnold with SiteLogic, program executive for the project, and also online tonight is Tim Werner, who serves as our chief estimator. Just wanted to give an update as it relates to our work as Phase 2 continues. Obviously, you heard from the Hayes Group here earlier. And I guess wanted to kind of do a refresh as it related to the overall budget. As we've discussed before, we have the Phase 1 actual cost that you can see there of a little over 12.7 million. And then the soft costs of a little over 5 million, which basically left a balance of a bit over 24 million to get us to our roughly $42 million budget that we are working towards. As we evaluate a set of design development documents, as the Hayes Group described earlier, you can see there's a tremendous amount of detail that we didn't have, previously. So it gave us a chance to get involved in a more detailed estimate. We have probably 27, 28 pages of takeoff in our Timberline program that we've been working on over the last several weeks. We shared that with the administration and Hayes Design, and we really scrubbed it to make sure that we were seeing the scope in the project the same way that the architect was designing. And a lot of that helps us to gain clarity. It helped us to pare down the number a bit, and we're in the process of doing a refresh of that number. I guess the good news is, despite the hyperinflation that we've experienced, in addition to Shane talking a bit about the supply chain, it's been obviously a rather interesting time in the construction industry. We feel very comfortable with where we are right now. With the refresh of the estimate, we're really getting very close to where we need to be. As Mike identified earlier, we've taken a look at some things that do not impact the educational function of the building. Things like being able to maintain certain electrical panels because they are functioning well and they don't need to be moved. Certain piping that is really holding up well, and maybe looking at the fittings instead of taking out all of the piping. Those kind of things have really helped us achieve a much better situation here as we move into construction documents. The other thing that we're going to be doing is continuing to work with Hayes Group and the administration on really honing in on the schedule, not only the completion of the design schedule and getting it into the bidding phase, but what the phasing is going to look like and how that, not only we want that to continue to not disrupt educational function, but how we can make it efficient for our subcontractors so that price can continue to be competitive. And also, making sure that we're rolling from one phase into the next so that we save on mobilization costs and really take advantage of opportune bidding timeframes. The fall is usually a very good time for projects, especially school projects. At that time, a lot of the heavy summer crunch is over. Contractors, subcontractors are now focusing on what work they have in the future. And typically, if you're one of the first projects to bid in the fall, you're going to get some pretty good results because the contractors are trying to fill up their quota for the upcoming year and staying within their bonding capacity. So, long and short of it is the last couple of weeks have been extremely exhaustive in collaborating. I think we've made a lot of good progress. One of the things that we're learning a lot from Phase 1, as Shane indicated, and so we're able to take those lessons learned and find some efficiencies, within the Phase 2 piece. So again, that it's to the advantage of the district at the end of the day, getting the most value, for the money that's being spent. So, just wanted to give you that brief update. Are there any questions regarding the work that's happening right now with Phase 2?
Yes, so one quick question here. So your bid strategy, you're saying the opportunity in the fall be more advantageous towards us. Are you going to keep with the same contractors, or you put it out for 3 bids? I know Giza, we don't have to, but is that a strategy, looking at other contractors, subcontractors coming in, or you just stick with the guys you have right now?
No, they will be competitively bid. It's a great question. We believe in that competitive bid process. We do realize that the contractors that are currently doing work for us, as I mentioned, the mobilization factor there, we hope to see a more sharpening of the pencil from those contractors. They're, you know, as far as the systems are concerned, the break-off points, we try to make sure that from a warranty perspective, we're not voiding any of that. So in some cases, you know, we're going to work closely with the current contractors, but we need to have the competition. So, you know, we're definitely, we always are seeking to have 3 or more contractors bid on each of the packages.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the update. Next on the agenda, Draw Collective. Are you going to give us a short update on the elementary center? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Sorry with you, probably not worth me even sitting down. Mine's going to be
great.
much briefer than what you just sat through. It's a little bit, is this on? Can you tell if this is on? Okay, thank you. So I really am not making a presentation tonight, just giving you a verbal update as to what's been going on. We have been focusing, I think we've talked about how like the phases of the project, we're really still very high level. We've been focusing on the programming and planning for the building. We've met with the administration, we've done a lot of diagramming back at the office, and we're actually meeting with principals and some of the specialist administrators this week to really start to talk about how we test all of those program functions within the building. You know, one of the things, a couple of things that really impact the size and the organization of the building are things like specials. So like if, you know, things like art classes, music classes, library, how many specials there are in a day, in a week, and so that drives how many spaces we need in order to accommodate a specials rotation for the school size. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and trying to get clarity around that. Also, things like special education can have an impact. You know, how many rooms we need to deliver education, whether they're full-size rooms or resource rooms. That's another component of the building that we had in our initial program based on our best guess from other experiences that we've had. But now it's time to really like put that to the test for what your K-5 building will be. And so we're really looking still high level, the general number of rooms, trying to understand what's going to happen in the rooms so we know how big the rooms need to be, and kind of diagramming each functional component in a little bit in a bubble, you know, looking at the classroom wing, diagramming how that classroom wing works, looking at the library, diagramming how the library needs to work, and then we start working on how the library relates to the classroom wings, relates to the music, relates to all of those things. So, you know, we have made, I think, some good progress. I hope to have several meetings here over the next couple weeks to really try to get that component of the project lined up. You know, I think that we approach those meetings with a lot of ideas to get people thinking and talking about how this might look. We don't want to just assume that the status quo of how it's happened at the multiple elementary schools is going to translate to the same way it's going to happen at the one elementary school. So our goal right now is to try to get people talking and thinking about how the building would be used differently. Where are those opportunities for you know, enhancement of what you're doing, some efficiency, all of those kinds of things. So it's actually, you know, one of the more enjoyable parts of a project is going through that with your team. And the goal would be that at the, in the fall, as the teachers are coming back, we're really then starting to go down a level in the design to talk about now what's happening in the room. We're doing a little bit of that brainstorming now, but we're really more looking at how many rooms, how big they are, what are some of the activities that we want to make sure we can accommodate, but then what do we need in the room to accommodate those activities. So that's kind of our main thing. We've also been on the side, if you could see my office, you would understand, but it's doing a lot of test fitting of the building onto the site. We've talked about the site. It definitely got its challenges with topography, and so we want to make sure that we have a game plan for where are our pinch points on the site, what are some of the driving factors when it comes to the organization of the building. So we've been doing a lot of that kind of as a separate exercise as well. We also are working with our MEP engineers to prep for a MEP series of meetings to talk about what the system objectives would be for the building. And similarly on the site, we'll be having a series of meetings to talk about some of the site objectives. So a lot of meetings, a lot of design happening, but nothing for today to present. But we also, the various site investigations, I see them here on your agenda, things like the environmental analysis, those things will be ramping up. And so there will be people on site in the coming weeks who are doing that activity. So I think the only other thing I wanted to just mention is that last time we were here, there was a presentation after we talked on the phys ed, and we actually were kind of walking out the door and then decided to stick around. But it was good to hear that conversation, and it's definitely in our mindset as we're talking about the new elementary school, how the building can be a resource to the entire district, whether it's phys ed or otherwise. Where do we have opportunities to try to capture some utility for the district athletics while we're doing the elementary school. So I just wanted to mention that as a follow-up to last month. So that was it for me tonight. It's nice to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
progress makes sense. It's important to understand the requirements, the functional design before you get actually into the detailed design. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's keep drilling down.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to conceive of things accurately and then plan them based on those objectives than it is to get yourself stuck into a solution that doesn't then support the goals. So I try to stay very loose in the beginning in order to help achieve that. So but anyways, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have to do anything? Thank you.
Next item, public comments on agenda items. Any comments people want to make on anything related to the agenda that we'll vote on tonight? Any call-ins?
No Collins.
No? Okay. Thank you. Let's move on then to the voting portion of the agenda. So Personnel Committee, Mr. McGregor, can you take those two items?
Sure. Under personnel, we have two items: approval of extra duty responsibility program for the 2022-2023 year, and appointment of personnel.
Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Scalzo.
Yep. Voting is open. Motion carries.
Okay.
Do you want to take a moment to introduce?
Yeah, I was just going to do that. So I'd like to
Okay.
recognize Ryan Quinn. You go by Ryan, right? Yes. So Ryan Quinn, our new Director of Facilities. Could you stand up? Everybody can, everybody in this whole crowd can see you. Yeah, now's the time for your 5-minute prepared speech. Do you have that? Okay. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Congratulations. Welcome to Bethel Park. Mr. Modrak, will you take the facilities?
Yes, sir.
items?
Tonight, we have 5 items on the agenda here. 1, approval proposal for infiltration testing. 2, payments for Independence Middle School Phase 1 renovations. 3, awarding of bids. 4, approval of civil proposals. And 5, approval of change order for the high school excavation project. I'd like to move all 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Scalzo again.
Any,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can have.
any questions or
Take it.
question, Dr. J, number 5, the excavation project at the high school?
That's actually a change order of a credit of $5,000. We're going to do, when Ryan gets on board, we're going to have him finish the courtyard when he shows up. Yeah, we cut that portion out, and we're going to do it in-house wise. So that's a credit for 5 Gs.
Okay.
I'd like to
Fantastic.
hear that. Any other questions or comments?
So Ryan has $5,000 to keep the weeds out.
Voting is open. Motion carries.
That's all I have, sir. So back to you.
Okay, very good. So we're already back to public comments on anything related to the school.
Nobody on.
Nobody on? Okay. Any board comments?
I have a quick thank you to read
Yes.
from Kevin Rice at Steele Center. He says, "Thank you for your continued support of Steele Center for Career and Technical Education. By approving a Steele Center renovation, your district is investing in students, families, businesses, and the communities that we serve for decades to come. We look forward to our ongoing partnership with you as we work to strengthen the pathway to success."
Good. I was going to send Kevin Rice a note also to thank him for only having 1 bond payment this year, which helped us out on our budget.
Thank you.
But I guess there was a change. The state budget was approved, and I guess, Doug, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to delay till next time, that's fine. But
No, I mean, it's fine. There was an increase in the state funding, but we had accounted for pretty much most of that increase anyway, so it doesn't really change our bottom line in our budget at all. But yeah, it was nice to see that the state legislator came through with some additional money. There was an additional line item there for public safety and mental health that we did not account for, so that will be some additional money. I think it was $318,000 for the district. So I'm not sure what's going to be tied to that grant yet or that money, but I'm sure they'll be coming out with some regs on that shortly. So keep you posted.
Dr. Giansanti, is there anything from the district yet on the act that went with the budget about extending an additional year of school for students in special education who turned 21 during the previous school year, of where they should direct that form, those parents?
Yeah, I don't really have an update on that.
Okay. Okay. Part of what was passed was an extension for students who turned 21 in between the beginning of last school year and the beginning of this next upcoming school year. If they are in special education and still receiving services from the district and turn 21, the student and the parent or guardian can fill out a form that PDE posted on their website and submit it to the district. But they need to do that on or before August 1st.
Any other comments? No? Motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned.